One of the most recognizable features in the entire Legend of Zelda series are its dungeons. Whether they're called labyrinths, palaces, temples, or anything else, Zelda dungeons have become an essential part of the game's narrative. Of course, what dungeon would be complete without its own original music? The sheer variety of dungeon themes would be enough to fill an entire soundtrack, and many fans have expressed what their favorites are. So, as a Zelda fan myself, I thought I would join the fun and create my own ranking. Before we get started, please like, comment, and most importantly, subscribe to my channel. You can also ring the bell to receive notifications of new content. Due to my professional responsibilities as a music teacher and researcher, and my personal responsibilities as a new dad, I'm not always able to post very often, but with your support by liking and subscribing, I can focus more effort on creating these videos. Now, like all rankings, there will be a measure of subjectivity. This list, of course, is merely my opinion, and I'm sure many of you will agree or disagree with my selections. That being said, I would love to read your opinions as well, so please comment below. I generally respond within 24 to 48 hours, and I would love the opportunity to start up a conversation. I thought it would be important to base my rankings on an evaluation rubric so that I could explain my choices in a way that wasn't solely based on my personal feelings. So I decided to judge each example of dungeon music according to 3 categories: immersion, aesthetic, and originality. Immersion, as applied to gaming, is defined as the ability for the game to provide a suspension of disbelief, meaning that the player will perceive the game environment as real and become emotionally invested in that world. Music is an incredibly important part of creating immersion within a game, and the music for the Zelda dungeons is ideally created to increase that state. The aesthetic of music are the principles of how the music itself contributes to the idea or concept of what it is supposed to represent. For example, a piece of music would not be appropriate if it contained car horns and jackhammers when placed against a game set in a non-urban setting. Therefore, part of what makes Zelda's dungeon music effective is how well it describes the aesthetic of the dungeon's overall concept. Finally, what makes each Zelda dungeon unique is the originality presented through its visuals, layout, and of course, its music combined. Each category scores as high as 10 points, with a total of a potential perfect score of 30 points. There were a few more guidelines I set when reviewing which dungeons I would include in my analysis. First, I did not include any dungeons that shared the same music with other dungeons. While the music of the original Legend of Zelda's Labyrinths or Zelda 2's Palaces is excellent in their own right, they share the same music and cannot create a sense of individuality. This also goes for A Link to the Past, Phantom Hourglass, Spirit Tracks, and some of the dungeons in A Link Between Worlds. Final dungeons were also not considered because their themes are based on music that spans across the Zelda series, such as the Hyrule Castle theme and Ganon's theme. Though these are both fantastic themes, it would be an unfair comparison to make considering that they are not attached to the concept of a single dungeon. I didn't consider any boss fights in the ranking either, as they tend to have their own theme music. I also did not include any mini-dungeons, such as the shrines from Breath of the Wild. Though the Divine Beasts do not conform to the traditional Zelda dungeon formula, which usually contains a map, compass, special item, and a boss key, they are the closest representatives in that game and were included. Finally, I did not give any preference to how sound quality played a part in the overall ranking. Whether we hear the synthesized music of earlier Zelda titles or the streaming of full live orchestral sound in more current installments, this ranking was not influenced by advancements in sound technology. So, without further ado, here is part 1 of my top 10 Zelda dungeon themes. Stone Tower Temple, The Legend of Zelda, Majora's Mask. Many Zelda dungeons convey a sense of immersion by using sound effects and ambient noises to heighten the environment. Stone Tower Temple breaks the mold by playing an actual melody. This is passed throughout different instruments and gives a sense that the song is part of the history of the Ikana region. Folk music is a major source of individual culture, and the Zelda series has created folk melodies for many of the various cultures, including the Koroks, the Gorons, and the Zoras. Stone Tower Temple's music is reminiscent of a tribal ritual, which is appropriate considering the theme of the area. The Akana people were a proud, warlike culture that prized strength and conquest above all else. The bass line of the melody suggests a war chant, while the upper line is a dance-like tune that fits perfectly with the aesthetic. Stone Tower Temple is also unique because it is one of the few Zelda dungeons to have a second phase. Once Link finds the light arrows, he can strike certain symbols to turn the temple completely upside down. This also affects the music in turn, as the theme is played in reverse. This is known as the inverted theme and sounds similar to the original version because the music itself is symmetrical. Earth Temple, The Legend of Zelda, Skyward Sword. Skyward Sword was the first Zelda title to include a fully orchestrated musical score. The game brought a lot of Asian imagery to several of its areas, and the Earth Temple represents aspects of Indian culture both musically and visually. The architecture of the temple and its music complement each other beautifully. Colorfully sculpted animals such as elephants, snakes, and dragons really highlight the Asian influence, while the music provides an exciting rhythm with ethnic percussion instruments like the tabla and other hand drums. The mix of other Indian instruments such as the sitar and the bansuri, a bamboo flute, give an authenticity that could not otherwise be imitated with synthesized sounds. Water Temple, The Legend of Zelda, Ocarina of Time. Just because Ocarina of Time had to function with synthesized sound does not mean the music was of any lower quality. Whatever fans think of the notoriously frustrating design of the Water Temple, it is without a doubt that its music perfectly suits the sleek underwater atmosphere. The opening descending scale played by a wind chime-like instrument combined with a low woodwind bass line creates a mysterious yet strangely calming effect that betrays the dangerous nature of the temple. This gives way to an improvised flute solo followed by the entrance of a guitar-like instrument that sounds similar to a mandolin. The lack of percussion gives the music an ethereal quality that mirrors the flow of the water itself. Divine Beast Va Rudania, The Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild. Breath of the Wild broke the mold when it came to dungeon design, a controversial change that received mixed reactions from fans. For this entry, I will be focusing on the main theme that begins once the first terminal is activated. Each Divine Beast contains music that represents the individual culture of the region, such as the Gerudo tribe for Va Naboris, the Rito for Va Meadow, and the Zora for Va Ruta. Va Rudania stands out from the others for its representation of the Goron race.
The Gorons are tough, rock-eating creatures that make their home in the shadow of Death Mountain, an active volcano. As such, the music for the majority of the dungeon contains a heavy amount of pitched metallic percussion that would not be out of place in a foundry or smelting factory. This is enhanced by a melody played by a combination of a panpipe and a xylophone accompanied by guitar chords. As Link activates each terminal in the dungeon, the music grows more intense with the addition of percussion instruments such as the cymbals, gong, and hand drums. For more information on the musical analysis of all 4 Divine Beasts, please check out my Zelda playlist. Wind Temple, The Legend of Zelda: Wind Waker. The final temple of the Wind Waker bears its namesake and is considered one of the more difficult dungeons in the series. Filled with whirling fan blades and gusts of strong crosswinds, the Wind Temple's music begins with overlapping flute motifs accompanied by a simple rhythm played by a triangle. This is punctuated by short flute, xylophone, and guitar phrases that almost sound childlike. This may be appropriate considering the cartoonist's cel-shaded graphics, but is very deceptive as the dangers of the temple are anything but. The low string tremolos that periodically appear create an ominous feeling that reminds us how sinister this dungeon really is.
You'll have to tune in next time to find out the top 5 of the best Zelda dungeon music. Until then, I hope you enjoyed the list so far, and I'd love to see your comments. Please ring the bell for notifications, and of course also subscribe.